Hey guys, Thorin and Monty here. We are very glad to be back with Esports Bet for the World Championship. We'll be doing a competitive edge for every single phase of the tournament, starting with Swiss. We'll be back halfway through Swiss with another one of these, and then before quarters and semis and finals. So you can look forward to 5 episodes of competitive edge. We're talking about the odds. With this one, guys, again, as we caveat every single time, we do play a little bit more conservatively when we haven't seen the teams on this patch in this meta. So we really have no idea what form a lot of these teams are in. But this is also where you can get some of the most juicy odds because, you know, the line might be moving in very interesting ways before other people have evidence, and you can get some good value because oftentimes people will make predictions based on historic world results that don't really line up if you've been watching some of the domestic leagues. So there are opportunities to get good value here as well. There are a lot of ongoing promotions, and most importantly, guys, it's going to be our match of the week, which for Last Free Nation, which is going to be Cloud9 versus Mad Lions. And what this means is that you can enter a raffle in one of 2 different ways. You can leave a comment below with your Esportsbet username to be put into said raffle, where you can win up to USDT $10. They'll be giving away a bunch of these. Or you can, or $20, excuse me, or you can place a $10 bet on our match of the week, Cloud9 versus Mad Lions. That'll be another way to enter yourself in the raffle. So you can enter for free by placing your username below. There'll be other raffles, of course, given out on the Esportsbet Discord over the course of Worlds. Hundreds of dollars they're giving away, and you'll be able to see that in their giveaways channel. You can just click to sign up for those raffles. So lots of good opportunities. Be sure to comment here on Competitive Edge, subscribe to this channel, as well as join the Esportsbet Discord to get good incentives. And as usual, you know, we're having the same deposit bonus up to $100 USDT that we've always had using our referral code. So let's
50% match.
Yes, yeah. 50% match. As usual, guys, we'll be talking about some of the matches today. We can start with Cloud9 versus Mad Lions because Cloud9, this looks relatively even. Mad Lions, pretty disappointing, you would have to say, performance in playoffs, but Cloud9, potentially the favorite heading into LCS, did end up losing to NRG in the end, relatively convincingly by the time we actually got to the finals. And some might say that given some of the other performances that we've already seen between NA and EU, that perhaps Mad Lions, especially as an underdog, they're just barely below 2.0 odds. They're literally at 1.999 odds when I checked. I actually like this matchup for Cloud9, or for Mad Lions, rather.
Okay,
yeah, for Mad Lions. So
okay.
I like this matchup for Mad Lions. It
Yes.
seems like, you know, Chasey isn't really going to get punished potentially by Fudge in the top lane. It feels like mid lane MNS, you know, maybe won't be able to push that many advantages versus Niski. And Elyoya versus Blabber should actually be a relatively fun matchup. And also, you know, they've got Berserker, but Carzzy was quietly, well, actually not so quietly, the best player on Mad Lions. So it feels kind of very even if you go down lane by lane.
Yeah, the big problem I see if you want Cloud9 and to be the favorite is you almost have like really good matchups across the board, player for player, as you're saying. And then also add in, both teams were fairly disappointing by the end of summer. Like Cloud9 basically collapsed in on themselves. It's just that there weren't really enough LCS teams to sort of catch the throw, as it were. Like the only one who actually managed it was NRG. Aside from that, the others just weren't good enough teams. Because think about who the other teams were. It was literally like Team Liquid, bloody
Golden Guardians fell apart.
Golden Guardians, and then TSM was even supposed to be after these. It's like you can see the Cloud9 could have looked way worse than they did. If anything, Mad Lions, it's because they had to play all these European teams that look terrible. So I agree. I actually think on paper, Mad Lions is the favourite. By the way, for these as well, the other angle I would use when you're making bets on the Swiss stage is because it's so long since summer, I wouldn't go too heavily off summer results. I wouldn't think that that's like form, because if that's form, Monty, it's months ago that form's ended. Like they haven't even played any matches since then. I go more off things like, what are the base fundamental aspects your team has? How do you like to play the game? What pieces do you have? What's the current meta? Like what champions are going to be available to play? So yeah, the problem I think is like, essentially, even though Cloud9 has strong players, they're almost perfectly matched. Like as you say, AD and jungle, where they're supposed to have the potential edge, it's actually one of the rare teams that probably don't have an edge.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I kind of view this as a pretty big 50-50 right now.
I think the
maybe,
odds necessitate a mad bit, yes.
yeah, maybe a slight edge to Mad Lions, in which case, just because we like those odds, I think you just have to go with this one for Mad Lions. So we're going to put 50 USDT on this just to start things off. We'll be betting in units of 50 just for the initial round. We'll go a little bit crazier as we have more information. Now, as you're going to see...
remember, whenever we do the match of the week, it's even better if we find you a bet like this that we think's a 50-50, because you're not only going to get the underdogs, you get the extra amount if they win because of the bet, right. the bonus from the bet of the week one. Yes, if you've never done the bet, yeah.
Okay. So, all right, let's talk about some of the other odds that we're seeing on the site. Because right now, obviously, like, there's going to be a bunch of ones that really aren't worth it. Like, there's almost no way that Team Liquid beats T1, which is why we're seeing the 1.048. Even less likely that GAM beats Gen G. Same thing with BDS and JDG. I mean, these are matches that really aren't worth it. We did divide. We have a couple flyers that we're probably going to take here just to be a little bit cheeky on the very, very outset. But it feels like those matches in particular do not bode well for the underdogs at all. And that's part of the problem with this stage of Swiss also, is because at least there is some level of seeding, whereas like once we start getting more even matchups as Swiss progresses, that's in theory how it's supposed to work, we're going to get much more interesting lines and potentially matches where you can get good value. But these are not them. These are not them.
I'm not throw this out there. The other reason why I actually think the later rounds of Swiss are some of the best places to bet money in esports is because not only are a bunch of the games BO1, but they're not going to have the prep advantage. Remember, when we're all judging them off like playoff series, we're judging them off series where they might have like a week to prepare for that one opponent and you tunnel in on everything and you get this one set of match. You don't have that in this. So that's why I also think there's going to be a lot of underdogs that if they get bad odds are going to be worth betting throughout this tournament. So BO1s, I'm going to do a lot of underdogs, but I agree on the start, you start with the fairly conservative ones. Like I'm guessing the only other one we're going to do is the G2 Dam one.
Well, yeah, I think the underdog there, this is just ridiculous. Like if you look at G2 versus D+, like yes, D+ is probably a slight favorite, but they also were just like clearly not in the same tier as the other Korean teams. And G2 ended their split in a very strong fashion and has a variety of ways they can do well. Their expertise at level 1s can get them advantages they can snowball off of. It's not like D+ is a great macro team that's going to drill them into the ground in an even late game state. Like they kind of suck at macro, if we're being honest. So not only do I think that G2 is a slight favorite here, it's even bigger when they have almost 2.4 odds. To me, this is like actually a huge mismatch where people are riding on the names of Canyon and Showmaker without actually having watched this team play.
I mean, it's funny, like you said, they've got a whole bunch of world champions, and even in your brain, if this is where you know people don't watch the region, if people only watch international competitions, well, the last time they remember Showmaker Canyon is Worlds last year. They're still good players. Like they could do it. It's like, yeah, but they've fallen off so much compared to then even that like there's a very good chance G2 can win this game. I think I agree with you.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and put 50 onto the underdog here of G2. Even if you were to believe that this was slightly D+ favored, these odds are just ludicrous. So I think you really do have to put a prediction onto G2 in this matchup. The next one is the most even matchup, at least in terms of odds, and even more even than C9 versus Mad Lions, which is literally KT versus BLG, which is 1.38 for KT versus 1.847 for BLG. This is like very, very minor, 50.0001% KT favored. Now, I'm still going to take KT here because I'm a KT fanboy and I believe in them, but I think it's really difficult to call this particular match.
Say the odds again, will you? What did you say the KT
was? 1.838 to 1.847 for BLG.
There you go. I think you maybe said like 1.3. I think you said the wrong way around. But yeah, basically it's very, very close to the odds. Like I agree though. I actually think this is a very well priced match. The thing with this one is, this is where it's tough. Because if you want like a long-term strategy, these are really dangerous games to bet on because unsurprisingly, both teams can win. But I would say it this way. If you really do believe like one is a favorite, you're also getting amazing odds for whoever the winner is. Like if you actually can pick a team between the two, like if you have some reason why BLG would win each time against KT's style, then definitely bet BLG on this one because the odds are going to be incredibly high for a team that like both these teams are very good teams at Worlds. I think it's a hard one to pick though, I have to say, Monty. Like my gut tells me BLG, but I also feel like KT Roasted is actually one of the big sleepers of the whole tournament. I think they have real potential against every team.
Look, here's the thing we know about KT. If they are not nervous and they are not getting the yips in the playoffs, they dominated the regular season. And part of that was Faker's injury, but they did actually just straight up beat Gen G fair and square. And they just couldn't bring that performance to the playoffs. So this was a team that was expected to win the LCK summer playoffs. They crashed and burned. That doesn't mean that they're going to do it every time. And logically, if they translate that performance that they had domestically in the regular season in Korea, they are a potential Worlds winner. Like you just have to view them that way. So BLG, the same argument could be made, but the thing about it is that BLG did fall off in the summer split. I guess they finished in first place, so you could make the same arguments about KT. You could BLG. They only did lose to JDG in the regular season, so that's why this is tough. That's why this is tough. I am a KT homer though, and so I'm going to pick KT because that's just how it goes, and that's who I want to win selfishly. I'll put 25 on this one. Not super confident. Now we're going to get into the territory of flyers. So the question here is, do you think NRG has what chance do they have to upset Weibo? And what chance does Fnatic have to upset LNG?
Here's the tough part about this, Monty, is like on the NRG one, the real issue is there is a chance, but it's mainly from Weibo. Obviously, people know Weibo can be incredibly, like, of all the, I even might say of all the Asian teams I've ever seen, the variance might be the craziest I've ever seen because sometimes they can be, so there's a reason why they made it to Worlds, to a very hard region. But at the same time, I've also seen them have atrocious games. So like, the only issue I have is this. It's not the Weibo side. I think Weibo can give them a chance. The problem I have essentially is, do I believe sort of NRG can catch a throw? They can capitalize. That's the biggest question for me on this one. So it's not impossible. It's just the problem I have was the way NRG won NA was catching throws, but that was NA teams. Like the problem is I sort of don't know. I don't know if they can like meet the requirement to catch the throw, if you know what I mean. That's where I'm sort of torn because I do believe Weibo will give you a chance. There's a real world where they can give you a shot in one of these BO1s.
Yeah, the thing about Weibo is that they were losing to some real shitters in the LPL, but they were also beating JDG in best of threes this year. So, they have kind of played to the level of their opponent, and that has led to some unlikely losses. They weren't particularly impressive in the playoff run that they had either. It was kind of surprising. I guess not super surprising, but they weren't a lock to make it to Worlds from the LPL by any means. And they did step up, but the first stage of Swiss in a best of one. Now, do I think NRG is going to win, guys? No, I do not. Do I think they probably have a very small outside shot at winning? Yeah, I do.
But this way, if they win even 20% of the time, the odds make sense.
Yeah.
That's how high that's the real reason this is also an interesting match, because if you're saying about taking a flyer, mate, 5.2, that's the sort of odds I want for a flyer.
Well, what's crazy is that
it's not that terrible, yeah.
What's crazy is that earlier today, these odds were over 6 for NRG, which definitely, made the flyer worth it. They have gone down. I'm questioning it a little bit more myself right now, but I do think we'll still put like 25 onto NRG, because I'm just thinking back, and you guys who watch Competitive Edge will know this. How many times did we get fucking cucked by NRG in the LCS playoffs? If we had just predicted them as the underdog every single time, like we would have made an insane amount of money. It was really ridiculous how heavily they were favored against rather, and they still kept coming up with all of these wins. So won't make that mistake again. At least take them as a potential underdog here. And LNG versus Fnatic. I know you like Fnatic on this one because we were talking about it on Summoning Insight. Not
really, you have to realize the point of that on the show was you have to talk about some matchups.
Sure.
I can't just be like, well, they're all open and shut. There's only C9 Mad Lions and G2D plus. That's the other show, guys. 10 minutes. So it's more like I'm trying to craft at least a potential way you could win the BO1, you know.
Yeah. But still, I mean, the odds are very good here for Fnatic. Humanoid,
yeah.
Here's the thing. Humanoid does level up at Worlds. We've seen that in virtually every single Worlds. Even last year, he had a very good individual performance at the World Championship. Is that enough to overcome like the 1-2 punch in the mid lane that is Scout and Tarzan, arguably the best 2v2 combo in those positions in the world? Two-time reigning MVP Scout, who has been extremely good this entire year. Where are the points of weaknesses you would go after? Like, Zika leveled up. They took JDG to 5 games twice. Especially the first series felt very winnable for LNG. How good is Oscarinen going to be now that he's recovered from his injury? These are questions. Like, Noah's been a little bit iffy during playoffs. Gala's been extremely good. I feel like it's tough. Like Fnatic pulling off this upset is tough. I'm actually surprised the odds aren't greater for like this must be Fnatic fans bigger, like betting it down because you can't honestly tell me that I think NRG has a better chance of upsetting Weibo than Fnatic has a chance of upsetting LNG.
Like, here's the thing. To me, the reason these odds are like this is because people who only watch international play don't know LNG is that good. They think BLG is the one who's second best. So they're just betting off that. Meanwhile, I think Fnatic. Whereas the problem with Fnatic is this, Monty, is the reason I said it's plausible that there's a world where they can win is because what I always try to do for like a BO1 like this is I try and visualize that the game just ended, Monty. So the game just ended, the Nexus blew up, right? Who carried the game? How did they carry it? If there's no play, if I can't even pick a player, then I'll never bet on you. So the point is, there is a world where like if Razork had like a fucking sick early game and he mechanically outplays, if Humanoid has an excellent laning fit, there's a chance, there's a world where like a game state could be created. With that said, I actually, despite what I said on some of the insight, if I actually had to bet, I wouldn't bet on them. And here's why. Because the cynical reason I wouldn't bet on Fnatic goes like this. Noah and Oscarinen are mega rookies. They barely even played the whole split in Europe. Like, these guys are mega rookies. So unfortunately, I only need one to fuck up, mate, and it's over. So I think there's a very real world where if you add to that, like the established players are people like Razork and Humanoid, who've never really got it together as a duo. I think essentially the pieces aren't terrible for Fnatic, but I just don't believe in them as a team.
Yeah, that's fair. We will put we'll put a 10 USDT on.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe we get lucky.
Yeah, I agree with you though. The opening round, there just wasn't many matches to bet. So these are all flyers. I think these are fair flyers.
Yeah, there aren't that many matches to select.
At least the odds are high.
Yeah, at least the odds are high. Wish Fnatic would have been higher. But yeah, as we get deeper into the Swiss, we get not only information, but they will start to sort themselves out by winning and losing. It's going to become a lot easier to try and
give you an example. In theory, Monty, we should very seriously consider the odds of JDG and BDS because BDS is like 11 odds or something. But the problem is, you know what I just said there, where I have to visualize, and the Nexus blows up, and there's no player coming to mind. There's not a lane, there's not a player, there's not a champion. So I can't do that one in good faith. Those odds could be 100 to 1. I can't do it. Boys.
The problem is that BDS is only 8 to 1 as well. They're not even 10 to 1. Like,
okay, it's gone down. Right? Okay.
Yeah, it's gone down a little bit. So, it is a best of one, but JDG like losing to BDS is relatively.
It seems impossible. Yeah, it does seem functionally impossible, doesn't it?
But who knows what will happen? All right, guys, thanks for joining us for Competitive Edge. Hopefully that provides you some insight as you look to compete over on Esportsbet throughout Worlds. We will be back in just a few days after the first Swiss phase to discuss the upcoming matchups in the second Swiss phase and our predictions at that time. Remember, of course, to leave your comment with your Esportsbet username below so that you can be entered in the raffle to win free money on your account. We will see you in a couple days.